Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us on a gorgeous Thursday across Charlottesville, Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, and the world. Fall, I can feel that crispness in the air. I was walking with my wife and my son around the Redfields Pond this morning, and for the first time, I think since early 2019, I had a long sleeve shirt and a hoodie on, and it felt great to not have the humidity. Today's program is, I'm super stoked about, super excited about. Arleen Yobs is in the house. She's a former president of the CAR, Charlottesville Albemarle Association of Realtors. She's going to join us in a matter of moments. Same with Greg Slater. He's fantastic in this setting. Both are associate brokers with Nest Realty Group. We're going to spotlight the thriving, the booming Crozet market, top to bottom. I want to talk commercial real estate, some residential real estate, what's in store for that Barnes Lumber downtown district that has really been in the news lately. Albemarle County has got a joint venture going on with Frank Stoner with this development, and I think this is really going to help expedite the process and really bring a downtown to Crozet that I think is going to be even better for the community and keep Crozetians in Crozet as opposed to migrating to Charlottesville perhaps and going to the downtown mall. Before we welcome them to the show, let's thank two of our favorite clients. We are an advertising agency. One client we're very proud to work with as their advertising agency of record is Interstate Pest and Service Companies. Guys, this business started in 1969 with the first generation, Mr. Robert Wells. In 1969, Mr. Wells used his personal truck and some sweat equity to build a company. He would find the closest payphone and call his clients from a payphone and say, can I come service your business? Today, Interstate Pest and Service Companies has 4 generations of family, almost 100 employees, and a Commonwealth-wide footprint. I mean, I love stories like this. We love to also work alongside Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. Whether it's physical therapy, chiropractic care, sports medicine, Dr. Wagner has your back. And we love working with this team. Judah, you are the director, my friend. If you could go to the studio camera and let's welcome Arleen Yobs and Greg Slater to the show. First, thank you kindly for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure. This gentleman gets some props. He helped set up this interview. He suggested Arleen as a fantastic panelist for the show. Ladies first.
Ladies first.
Arleen Yobs, passions, hobbies, interests, what makes you tick?
Well, first, thank you very much. I feel very privileged to be here sitting with Greg Slater, one of my colleagues at Nest Realty, but also just to, when I reviewed some of the shows that you've done with other community folks, I was just awestruck by the guests that you've had. So I feel especially privileged to be sharing the mic, so to speak, with some of those folks too. Yes, so I feel in some ways that I've lived in Charlottesville all my life, but I honestly haven't. I was born and raised in New Jersey.
Okay.
And some folks ask me, well, gee, you don't sound like you're from New Jersey, but that is because I grew up in South Jersey. I actually went to college in New Jersey. I studied art and then met my husband there, and we moved to Charlottesville in 1982. And I was reminded that my son, youngest son, who I've discovered is about your age, was born in October of 1981, and that was when the mortgage interest rates were at their historic high. And coming to Charlottesville to look for a home was a bit of a challenge. So it was an interesting process. We had maybe 2 homes to choose from, and neither one of them was a home that we could get a conventional mortgage on. It was the home that we bought was a home that actually had an assumable mortgage, and the previous owner was willing to hold back a second mortgage at a very lower interest rate. Now, lower interest rate, if the high interest rates were 18.5%, that was going rate at the time.
Sure.
The second loan was still 9 to 10%. And folks, we're looking at less than 4 right now. So for mortgage rates, so that was definitely an interesting time. Moved to Charlottesville, and it's been just great ever since. Raised 3 children here. Now have you fast forward, and I have 6 grandchildren, the loves of my life, and I started my real estate career in 1985. I had to wait a little while for those interest rates to come down. It was sort of like getting into the business in 82 maybe wasn't the right thing to do for me at that time.
Sure.
85, joined Roy Wheeler Realty Company. That's where I had my start. And it's been a great career. I've been heavily involved in many different aspects of real estate over the years. I've marketed new homes for builders. I have worked the resale market, residential sales, basically my specialty. I've worked every phase of the market, from first-time home buyers to retirees, and have enjoyed selling numerous repeat homes to some of those clients, and also helping their children and even grandchildren look for homes. So 35 years in the business, it's been very rewarding.
35 years in the business, 39 years in Charlottesville and Central Virginia. So it's absolutely in your blood. Where was that first home that you bought?
It was in the city.
Yeah?
And so
Does it still exist?
It does.
Okay.
Very close to Charlottesville High School.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that at the time, families were, the market was very different then. We didn't even think of looking in a surrounding county. We were looking Charlottesville and Albemarle, and we felt that we needed to be close into town. My husband had taken a job at FSTC, Foreign Science and Technology Center, which at the time was located downtown. They later merged out 29 North to NGIC, National Ground Intelligence Center. So it was important for us at that time to feel like we were close in town.
So the mindset then, much like the mindset is evolving now, with people wanting to be close to town, close to amenities, close to the heart of the city. One of the things that I think is very exciting about the future of Crozet, with Crozet getting a vibrant downtown on the near horizon, we're going to spotlight this here. First, let's introduce you to this man. I love having this gentleman on the show.
Thank you.
An entrepreneur, a man that's well-spoken, knows real estate, loves ACC sports, even though it's Virginia Tech. We won't hold that against him.
I'm a Hokie that loves Whoville. What can I say?
You do. Thank you for coming on. Introduce yourself again.
Well, before I introduce myself, I want to give you a fun fact about Arleen, because we go way back. I got into the business in the mid-'90s, 1996, and I remember the first technological advancement of my career was thermal fax paper, right? And then, technology is always changing our business, but when the internet hit, it really turned realtors and the real estate industry inside out. Arleen was one of those first pioneers of the internet and a web presence as a realtor, and she still has the same website and domain today. She probably didn't know I realized this, but
what is the URL?
It's uniquehomesofcharlottesville.com.
Nice.
And that's
right.
Probably a 20-year-old domain.
Is that?
It is, and I don't even want to tell you how much that website cost to develop at the time. It was very expensive.
I would love to know. Can I ask? Can I get a personal? Because we build websites here, and they're much more affordable now. We just rolled one out for $5,000. That's very dynamic, mobile-friendly, SEO and content friendly. I'm curious.
It was between $17,000 and $18,000.
Get out.
And about 2 years later from that, not to steal your thunder here because it's your spotlight, but that's when I bought my first laptop computer.
How much was that
for
bad boy?
$4,000, and it was a brick. And I bought it at a conference. It was like one of these impulsive decisions. But I'm sort of techie-minded, and I've always liked to have the latest and the greatest stuff, and I wanted some portability. So that's...
Do you miss the days of the MLS being a book?
No, I don't. Matter of fact, in my leadership at CAR, I was on a board level role when we phased that out, and realtors were so reluctant to let go of it. The only way we could not turn it off. What we had to do was say, here's what it costs this month, and people would drop out, and we would keep doing it, and the cost would keep going up, and we had to wait until enough people dropped out that the cost got high enough for people to choose not to want it. Otherwise, we would have never been able to just pull the plug.
Well, now I love the accessibility of finding homes online. I certainly suggest working with a trusted professional like you guys to find your dream home and to make one of the most stressful decisions in your life at least less stressful. I think that's the value of someone like you. But let's cut to the chase. Let's talk Crozet here. A lot of folks watching. Tom Powell from the Toy Lift. Thank you for sharing the stream. Welcome to the program, Tom. Welcome to the program, Bobby Thompson and Ellen Dudley. You have 3 firms watching right now: Long & Foster, Keller Williams, and your firm, Nest, watching. Open-ended, exciting time for Crozet.
There's a lot going on in Crozet. We knew it was going to happen, right? This is the growth area. It was planned along. There's a 50-year plan out there that was created for the area. And you can almost, if you go out there enough, you can kind of feel where the growth area is. Because on one side of the street, like 240, coming in from 250, you can feel the neighborhoods on the left versus the farms on the right. And that's because the property on the left's in the growth area, and it was designed to be rezoned and to become something else. You've got Crozet Park is in the conversation right now. There's a lot of private interest in continuing the improvements that have happened with that park. We can talk about that. The lumber yard is the most important part of the future of Crozet, and Frank Stoner has made some progress lately on what that's going to become. We can talk about that. And of course, Arleen and I both live out there, and so we have our own perspectives from what it's like in our lives for what Crozet means to us.
I'm curious, Arleen, do you, as a real estate professional, I'm sure you love the growth. As someone that lives in Crozet and has to deal with the traffic and the flood of new blood coming to the market, and the infrastructure being tested because of that new demand, are you torn? How do you see it?
Well, we are relative newcomers to Crozet compared to even Greg and some of the others that have been on the show. But we built our home in 2012, so we've been there 7 years. And I can't say I haven't seen some increase in traffic. But to me, that is to be expected, and it's all relative in my perspective. It's still, we had lived 29 North, and so we were out in another beautiful neighborhood, Forest Lakes, for many, many years. And we had traffic there too. A different type of traffic. So nowadays, I come into town almost every day because, of course, I do work real estate often in town. Sometimes I can work from home, but sometimes when I know I'm going to be getting into town, I'll check my GPS and find out which is the better way to go, and hopefully there's no congestion on 64 and 250. Occasionally that happens. But it's changed, but it's not. It's good change, I feel. We have more neighborhoods, more communities in Crozet than we did. Let's see, how long has the growth plan been in place for? 2004 or so.
Sure, that's when Old Trail broke ground in 2004.
Yeah.
Look, we're about 9,000 people out there. I think this is the best guess people can give you, and we're going to go to about 20.
Right.
So. We got to realize.
Is that slightly terrifying?
Not to me, no.
No?
It's
Okay.
not. Well, things have to change along the way. When you think about the 250 corridor and the 240 corridor, and then Jarman's Gap, and all that housing in the middle, and the other side of downtown, there's just roads that are starting to show up and connections that are starting to show up that will alleviate some of what we're talking about. The worst part about Crozet traffic right now is if you need to go somewhere on 250 or out of Old Trail while the middle school and high school are when it's opening and closing, right? They have to manage it with a police officer. That's probably true of living near any big school, though, especially when you have two that close together. The other challenge is I don't have to commute back and forth to Charlottesville from Crozet. Some people take 250, some people take the interstate. But in the fall, when you're driving over the mountain at Ivy and you hit that time, as the clock's changing, when the sunrise hits above that road between 7 and 8 a.m., we have about an accident a week. Because people follow too close, they're maybe a little more distracted. But that you have to check your Google Maps before you take 64 in the fall, because it's a real serious problem with that sunrise. around downtown. Downtown's actually starting to alleviate a little bit. You know, when we talk about traffic, if you want to live someplace with no traffic lights and never one car in front of you at the stop sign, you know, that's not Crozet anymore. I realize it was, and people are disappointed it's not anymore. But a road just opened that's starting to alleviate things. If you think about Western Ridge and Foothill Crossing, everybody that lived back there could come and go from 240. And if you think about going past Claudius Crozet Park to West Hall and Westlake, everybody that lived back there has to wind all the way around back to downtown Crozet to get there. Well, the Eastern Connector has opened in the last 2 months. So now Westlake and West Hall can go out through Western Ridge and Foothill, which I would think takes a tremendous amount of traffic off of downtown at rush hour, because it's not the best way to go anymore, driving through downtown.
Downtown in the next few years is going to be very different. The first phase of the Barnes Lumber project was approved by Albemarle County.
That's right.
You're looking at 6.25 acres.
That's right.
The first phase.
The whole property is 20 acres,
right.
And as they were trying to it's been 5 years now. They've been working on what it's going to become, and they decided to just create phase one and figure out phase one. So that's what they've done, and now they've approved a plan that includes 240,000 square feet of commercial. Excuse me, that's the whole property.
Yeah,
but most of the commercial's in there. But the rest of the other phase is about 52 residential units. They expect a hotel to be there. And, of course, the plaza is the public-private partnership, which will be a venue in the center of all this that is for concerts and the like, that will be public space.
I think it's so exciting. Mm-hmm. How do you see it?
Oh, I'm just really, I think we're all sort of bursting at the seams there, waiting for this to all come to fruition, because I think when we first moved to Crozet in 2012, I envisioned it all happening more instantaneously.
Much sooner. Right.
And now we're looking at the second phase of the Village Center, taking pre-leases for that, and more shops, more restaurants, more dining, more activities. And not that we don't have something going on just about every day of the week out there now. You can base your whole month's calendar off of activities in just Crozet. So exciting.
How do you see it impacting home values? I got to see it as only a positive.
Well, it's got to be a positive, because I think we're starting to see, once we, pass maybe another year or two, we're going to have our own little urban core out there. I mean, I see that being a whole. My husband grew up in Richmond, and we would, in the early 80s, late 80s, never think of getting off in Short Pump.
Right.
It was a farm field, right? And so look what has happened with Short Pump, right? So I see us being sort of similar in a smaller way, but we've got a quaintness about us still that I don't think we will ever lose. We're growing, but we're growing carefully, cautiously, making the right steps. I see it as very positive. And I have clients who friends of mine who used to live in the other neighborhoods with me, who say, they're on to their maybe retiree home or their last home, they think, and they want to come out to Crozet and build a home, because, we're ready for the mountains. We want to be somewhere else. And so they're seeing what's going on. It's not just for the younger families. I'm seeing basically the full spectrum of people across the board, all ages. We have the Lodge Old Trail there. We have new apartments being built. I think that's going to be an overflow for some of the, honestly...
That people can't afford single family.
Right, but also, I don't want to use the word senior unless you're like at least 85. But some of the folks who are maybe thinking of selling a home or need something on one level or something that's smaller, downsize, I think the older market, the more mature market, there might be some of those folks wanting to, maybe think about that as a housing option, too.
To make a comparison to Charlottesville, I'll throw it to you, Greg. The downtown mall made Belmont and North Downtown and Woollen Mills, the home values there skyrocket, because people wanted to be close to downtown, walking distance to these venues, music, restaurants, shops, and just like the heart of town. It looks like the neighborhoods that are kind of around Stoner's Project, it's almost opposite of what happened in Charlottesville. They are going to boom and enjoy all this value. They came first, and then they're going to reap the value that comes from having a downtown district at the lumberyard. And within a short walk, if not a walk, maybe it's like a short Uber, short bike ride.
It's absolutely a walk in a lot of cases. So, one thing that the lumberyard piece is doing is, if you think about that, out the back of it, the one thing that still is not resolved that will cause the actual work to start is the design of the road that connects that part of downtown to Parkside Village, which in turn then now connects to Glenbrook, which connects to Foothill. And so it basically brings even Western Ridge a bike ride away from downtown, and at least not getting on a road that doesn't have sidewalks or a biking trail. So it's very important to that side of the community. But you're right, that's a good comparison. The eye-opening experience for me was, we were when Piedmont Place opened in downtown Crozet. It will be 3 years in March. But the first 60 days that building was open, you had a hard time getting in there to actually patronize one of those businesses. And I can remember being in there and seeing my friends that lived in Charlottesville. I'm like, what are you doing out here? And the buzz was so big for smoked and rooftop and what was going on in that building brought people from a little further away. And
let's not forget Crozet Creamery.
The Crozet Creamery. Well, it wasn't mine at that point.
Right.
But a few months later,
was Michael Comer running it then?
It was Mr. Comer was running it, and the owner happened to be the gentleman who built the building, and they decided they weren't going to hang on to that creamery, and actually invited Jonathan Kaufman and I in to help him sell it, and we. You
looked at the numbers and said, "Hell,
let me buy this." We fell in love with the idea of being the ice cream shop in Crozet, because Crozet is teeming with children and families, and that's honestly the funnest part of the business, being known as the ice cream guy among all the kids in Crozet.
And you mentioned something off air that I was surprised, and I'd love to get this out there. It's public record. Andrew Baldwin.
Yes, owns Piedmont Place now. That building changed hands in the last few months.
He's making moves.
Yeah, they're Bundoran, right?
Yeah.
Core Real Estate's got Bundoran.
Yeah.
I'm not sure everything they're into, but
he's got that project he did on Water Street, where he's built some a million plus condos that he sold. Okay. So Piedmont Place, I feel like once I saw, and you guys know Crozet a lot better than me. I've been in Charlottesville since 2000. When we started going to Smoked and the rooftop to Crozet Creamery, Morsel Compass.
Yeah. Great example of a business that came out of a truck, right? Yeah.
And when we started going there, I saw so much potential in how the community was just rallying around this fantastically built building. And the community is just chomping at the bit to have more Piedmont Place, more small shops that can patronize.
It's a discerning community, right? You can fail if you're not on point with good service and good quality. I mean, it's not just show up or build it and they will come. It's you need to build it and you need to manage it well, and you need to add and you need to do something of value that people appreciate, and then you will be rewarded for sure.
What excites you about this downtown district, Arleen?
Well, I feel the downtown district is a place where I'm finding residents, newcomers, and even folks that have been in Crozet for a while want to stay local. They want to patronize the businesses there. They want them to succeed. I would much rather go and buy a gift at the Depot or the Art Box, the frame shop, or I love the bookstore over the moon.
Great. Yeah.
It's not just a bookstore. They have other things in there. The people are friendly. They want their businesses to succeed. For ice cream, in any kind of flavor that you want, they want to listen. They want to listen to the community and succeed. So I'm really pleased. We've had some turnover, obviously, in restaurants. You're always going to have that. But I find that the tried and true businesses that have been around for a while are succeeding, and also we have almost every kind of medical care you can think of. We've got every kind of emergency care. We've got the Augusta Health Center. We've got acupuncture. We've got chiropractors. We've got dentists. We've got any kind of service just about that you can imagine. We're finding it less and less of a need to drive into town or to drive over the mountain to go to if you want to go to the big box store, then we don't have that.
Sure.
But I prefer to stay local when I can. And
Of course.
we're seeing that with so many of the residents. And the folks that are moving to Crozet or have been there for a while, we just can't get enough of that newness, of the new businesses and wanting to help them improve and be successful.
You got the best schools. You got a Harris Teeter right now. You have, you can pretty much get in everything now. You need a movie theater.
Well, look, when Fifth Street Station opens,
It's close.
That's literally,
far.
we're literally halfway between Fifth Street Station and Waynesboro now.
Right.
And there's nice movie theaters on either end of that trip. But, I have a 14-year-old athlete, and when Fifth Street Station opened, I'm like, I don't have any reason to go past that Dick's Sporting Goods ever again if it wasn't for my work, right? I don't need to even know 29's there.
Talk to us about, you are, in a lot of ways, the go-to guy in Old Trail. I'm gonna give a plug here for one of our clients as well.
Go ahead.
And Denise Ramey.
She's an Old Trail resident like Arleen and I.
We built her website, so Denise, we appreciate your support with that project. But you guys know Old Trail inside and out. Talk to us about what we can expect from Old Trail. We got a heck of a lot of development still to go here.
That's right. So the commercial component's rolling along. There's a building that will be finished probably in the next few months by the looks of it. And I think Denise will have a new office in there. There'll be some apartments in there. The village, the East Village is almost wrapping up. That's only about 10% to go. And so weather has made development more challenging this year. There's Block 32, is which most people are. If you drive in Old Trail and you come in on your left, there's a huge dirt road going up to an elevated site that is just getting to the point they can put gravel. But, we thought we'd be building homes back there 6 months ago, but the weather just hadn't allowed it. But that will be the next section. I'll tell you a story about what somebody just designed and built that is being built in Old Trail that might blow you around. Along the golf course, you have some very expensive lots, which I call the King family view, right? Except there's a golf course in between.
Sure.
It's very nice. Expensive, right? People are spending $800,000 to over $1 million on that street, but somebody, a third of an acre. And because Old Trail is zoned to take ADUs in most of those newer sections, so we can create those rentals and other things, someone designed a 3,400 square foot house on a crawl space on that third of an acre, and then a 900 square foot cottage. There'll be 2 homes on that third of an acre with those views, and the parent of the family, one of the living parents, will live in that cottage on that third of an acre within the community.
That's brilliant.
It is brilliant, and you have to have the resources to be able to do that. It's not inexpensive, but 2 residences on a third of an acre is pretty exciting, especially when it helps out somebody's lifestyle so much.
Sure. Arleen, jump in here. Did you ever expect it to have this kind of success, Old Trail?
No. Going back to the ARC days of the movie filming, there's been a lot of change in Old Trail, and as realtors, of course, we are on the inside looking out all the time and thinking about the future of a community. I can say the same thing about other neighborhoods in the past, having been part of Forest Lakes from the very beginning, and watching that and being part of that development. But Old Trail has just a whole different flavor to it. I can remember in the early '80s coming out to Old Trail or out to Crozet. There were only 2 reasons that we would come to Crozet back in the early
Crozet
80s.
pizza?
Well, that might have been the third one. The first one was I had kids swimming on the Jefferson Swim League.
Okay, JSL.
And we would have swim meets with the Crozet Swim Club every other year. That was once every other year. Maybe the Arts and Crafts Festival, which was going on at the time, we'd come to that. And the other reason was on Saturday mornings, we'd make a weekly trip to the ConAgra plant thrift store, and we'd bring a cooler out, and we would fill up our cooler with frozen foods that they sold at the thrift store.
And what's it now? Star Hill Music Today?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And a
super fun site.
And I wasn't a realtor at the time, so it was like we'd come to Crozet, and no offense to all my Crozet friends and folks who have lived here and embraced it for much longer than even Greg and I have, but it has obviously, just changed the lives of so many people, to the point where, yes, I wanted to build a home out here too. I had clients who contacted me back in 2011 to say they had been former neighbors of mine in Forest Lakes, and I had sold their house when they moved to Kansas. They contacted me, they sent me an email, and they said, we want to move back to Charlottesville. We're ready to come back. And but we want to be closer to the mountains. What do you have? What do you think? What can you think of for us? I knew exactly where they'd want to be, right in Crozet, and probably Old Trail, because they wanted that kind of a planned community concept. And so it was really great fun when I did their final walkthrough with them and had the opportunity to tell them that we too were building a home there because we liked it so much.
Sure.
So it's great. I think it's contagious. I'd like to just say it's people come out and they see it and they just don't want to leave.
Yes.
Those sunsets, the backdrop is just beautiful, whether it's at King Family or you go over to Restoration and sit on the patio and have a glass of wine and let the kids run and play in the grass. I mean, it's just such a relaxing setting.
We literally, as a young family, have done both in the last month. My wife is contemplating next Wednesday meeting her girlfriends at King Family for Wine Wednesdays. A bunch of moms get together with their young kids. We love going to Restoration and having a cocktail and enjoying those views. Our son can play in the grass right off the patio, like you said. I remember going to Crozet in 2001 or 2 and having a couple cold ones at Uncle Charlie's.
Yes.
Which is now the Mud House.
Yes.
I remember when Crozet Pizza was just basically one room and like seating for like 10 people.
Now it's a full-blown
Now
sports bar.
It's a sports bar, a tap room. They've taken over 3 different spaces, and
That's
it's
right.
packed, and the demand can accommodate. I love to talk about the strategic development. I love to talk about guys that have vision, like Frank Stoner. I'm so pumped for this. I'm so pumped for you guys. I'm so pumped for the community. How do you see this playing out? Give us, you know more about this than I do. How do you see this development happen in various phases? What are we seeing coming there? Do we think we're going to have the foot traffic demand that we have on the downtown mall? Even the downtown mall from time to time, Greg, as we know, and I love the downtown mall. Sometimes the demand isn't there early in the week. I mean, how do you see it all playing out?
There's not a lot of demand during the day for Piedmont Place. A lot of people are still leaving to commute. I hope, I have a lot of clients that work from home. I work from home in Crozet. But I also don't need an office for what I do. But a lot of people don't need an office and want to work from home, but they want to get out of the home. I think hopefully we'll see the creation of some more smaller office type environments that will help people who want to live and work in Crozet. Originally in Old Trail, they almost had a large employer there on that site where the lodge went.
Who was that?
Who CFA? Who took over the Martha Jefferson? CFA?
CFA did.
Yeah. That was a long conversation about having someone have a headquarters in Old Trail, and so that's been the vision all along, to have more employment out there. So hopefully some of that will happen around the plaza, mixed in with that retail. I'll give you an example. Piedmont Place has the restaurant, the food court, if you want to call it that, the retail level, and then residential apartments. Well, I think half of those residential apartments have been rented commercially as office space.
Right. So got a yoga studio in there.
Yoga studio left.
Yeah.
That.
Bard left.
Yeah, they just moved over by Sam's Hot Dog next to the old restaurant. That restaurant building that's empty now. 3 Notch. We're sorry to lose that one. That was a staple we loved for years around there. So Smoked has taken over the old bar space to use us more.
Back storage.
Yes, absolutely. So around the plaza, it'll be interesting to see what businesses are attracted there and what kind of events we can have to draw that. But I have to believe...
How's it going to be successful? What does it need to do to be successful, do you think?
Well, the residential mix needs to be right. The office and the retail need to be right. It's hard. We sit around talking about what Crozet needs all the time with our buddies. Everybody kind of has their own opinion of what Crozet needs and what needs to be done better. I'm not sure what I would predict at this point.
What do you think?
Well, I think Frank Stoner has been very good about involving the community and getting input as much as possible. I mean, there's been roundtable discussions for many years.
You could almost say he got too much.
Years, yeah. Right.
Well, and I've been to some of those meetings, and progress can't happen fast enough for me in some ways. I feel a little impatient. I'm feeling like I want to enjoy all of this as soon as possible because, I'm got a little bit of age on you guys. But, it's important they've got that input, let's just get on with it. Let's just get it done, get some planning, get it started, get some more amenities, that open space that's going to be there. I mean, that's just huge, to really have that. I can envision musical, concerts or musical events or just any kind of entertainment, so that folks don't feel like they have to go downtown to the pavilion, to the Sprint Pavilion, for Fridays after 5 or something.
I wonder a little bit which businesses are already in Crozet that don't have the never could get, because if you have a business in Crozet, you may or may not get the location and the type of building you want. You may be settling just because that's where you want to be. I think step one is people repositioning around downtown that want to take advantage of the best opportunities there. Those spaces.
Who comes to mind? We're just spitballing here.
We're just spitballing?
Yeah, we're just talking. Because I agree with you.
An ice cream shop on the plaza sounds pretty good to me, right? Just a little bit different location where there's more pedestrian traffic. That was the reason I started thinking along those lines. Maybe there's spaces for even the yoga studio that's already had to move once because they weren't right. Santasha Yoga and that bar, who knows? Because the opportunity there is going to be build to suit if you so choose, right? And in some cases, it will be an opportunity for investment. Whereas, Stoner's not going to build all of those buildings and say, come rent it.
Right.
There's going to be opportunities for people who want to develop their own commercial space to take a lot and find their tenants and build what they want to build for those tenants. So the story is yet to be told. I think now that we literally just turned a corner that they can start to put a timeline on this. So I think now's the time people are going to start thinking about these opportunities.
What's the timeline like? And do you think that timeline's a reality?
It'll never be a reality until you have 100% of your approvals in and you can break ground. So, Frank told me what his timeline was last time I talked to him. And I don't know that they break ground this year. I think they would like to break ground this year, but there's a road that needs to be designed by VDOT. That connector road out of the back of the parcel that connects to Parkside Village, VDOT has a lot of latitude for what the design specs of that road are. And so until they work that out, I think the timeline will be a little less than certain.
What do you think, Arleen?
I agree. It's going to be at least a couple more years. But we're at least, every step that occurs, we're a little bit closer. And we're just seeing so much we'll be able to put a timeline on it soon. It's something that we have to be careful of doing.
Well,
and like Greg said, you have to have some of those commitments.
As realtors, we've been told that timelines that moved forever, all of them. And it's not because developers want to mislead you or oversell you. It's because there's so many things outside of their control. It is a gauntlet to take on a project like that and get through the level of approvals you have to get and then motivate the contractors and everybody that's involved. It's difficult and it's hard to predict.
Tim Ryan says, I've lived in Crozet since 1985. I've been following this project for what seems like 20 years. We're ready for this to come to Crozet. The community's ready for this. We would love to see a tap room of some kind.
That's bound to, I can't imagine that's doesn't happen. Sure.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's a tap room, a music venue, some shops, as long as it has like a variety and it's eclectic. And I think if you're able to get like the live, work, play mindset in downtown Crozet, it's going to be successful. I would think that those condos, or if they're townhomes, whatever it may be, they're probably going to be pretty high dollar. And then you're going to probably have some high net worth people that are walking out that front door, and then they have the downtown right there for them to patronize and do whatever they like. And if you get these high net worth individuals, that can help support the businesses over maybe some slower times because they have the disposable incomes. And when you're able to support the business over the slower times, that's when the businesses are able to innovate and they're able to do some good things during the high demand times. I think it's just, as a young father and as having a young family, we think about it. We think about moving there. One of the things that we love the schools. We were a little trepid about the kind of, we've all touched on this, stuff to do. but that's changing. We love going to Pro Renata. We had the folks at Pro Renata, the guys that report directly to the ownership team on the show this past Friday, and they were talking about how they're going to create a huge mammoth stage in the back of Pro Renata on kind of like the pharmacy area. They're going to do a music studio back there. They're going to emphasize music even more.
Okay.
Potentially a CBD shop coming to Crozet.
It's almost, it's 2019.
It's come a lot. I mean,
but that's a good example of the businesses that are really going to work in Crozet. You're not just serving this Crozet community we talked about, right? It needs to be able to draw from outside that. Pro Renata is a prime example. It's drawing a... And
it's in Charlottesville.
That's right.
Yeah.
But it's on the way to maybe the other breweries too, and it's in a great location. That doesn't hurt. It's easy access, convenient to get to. Pulling Ivy to Crozet instead of Charlottesville, I think, is a big part of that equation as well.
Debbie Gibson Dedamore says, "Hey, Arleen, doing a great job right now. Give it a like, give it a share. Welcome Real Estate 3 to the program. Hello, Bellamy Brown. Thank you for watching. He's running for Charlottesville City Council. 5 real estate firms now watching the program. April Dent Ward's watching. She's an agent. Tyler Berry's watching from Catch the Chef. He runs his food truck up in Crozet quite often. I'm pumped.
I got a couple of things we might talk about that I think is cool. We have a jaunt service from Crozet to Charlottesville now, and I've seen my neighbors. I've seen a couple of my buddies. They both work for UVA.
On the service?
Well, they're not. They can't use it every day. Well, before school started is one thing, so they got to tweak this plan, right? They set their times and their routes, and now people are using it and they're getting feedback, and it will change because if it worked for some people before school started, then you got to take your little ones to the bus, and now maybe you can't catch your own bus. But I'll never forget the second day it ran. I'm in my backyard and I see 2 of my neighbors walking down the street. They looked like they were middle schoolers. They had gone to work together. They had ridden the bus. At UVA, it's free. So if you work in Crozet and you work for UVA, it doesn't cost anything. And it's, they both work at the Fontaine Research Park. They said it was a 20-minute ride back and forth, and it was a piece of cake.
And I think that's going to only make it more convenient to live in Crozet and drive more demand to Crozet, because the last thing you want to do, I think we're getting away from this mindset, and I'm hesitant to what I say here because we have we have 2 automobile dealerships as clients.
Okay.
But where I'm going with this is like the mindset is getting a little away from get in your car, drive places to work, and it's more walk out your door, live, work, play.
Sure.
Public transit, Uber. My brother, he lives in Los Angeles. He works for Snapchat.
Probably doesn't own a car.
Got rid of his car.
Yeah.
Literally, they do not have a car. They have 2 kids. They have no car.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I talk to these people that have used it and tried it, and I read some of the feedback online. They are all trying to figure out how to use it more. It works. Even if you have a car, everybody likes to drive it less. I think some of my best days are days my car doesn't leave the garage, for sure.
Sarah Hill Buczynski is watching the program. She says, "Hey, Jerry, you can move to Crozet now." Says hello to you guys. She's of Roy Wheeler, of course.
I'm one appearance away of getting them there, Sarah. Don't worry about
it. He's always selling. He's good at it, too. How about, we've filled 50 minutes. This has been easy. How about past president? Was it 2018?
2018.
2018. How's the association doing?
Oh, the association is doing great, and I'll give a little shout out to Denise Ramey since you mentioned her earlier. She led up our search committee for our new CEO, did a fantastic job of leading the committee to a brilliant decision of hiring Abby Tamman, who was already in the interim role of CEO for our association. She is now our new CEO of CAR, effective September 1st. So we're really excited about that. And we also have I'm going to just pull out this notation here. We have actually also been developing over the last several years the Hillsdale Conference Center, which is right next part of the building, has been enlarged. We have a beautiful space there, and we have CAR has hired Beth Hyder, a name that may be familiar to you, but
Glenmore.
She had been out at Glenmore for years. She's also a prior realtor, and so she knows our industry very well, and she is going to be our director of Conference Center Sales and Services, because we look to this addition to be a revenue space for our association, and it is beautiful. We're going to have, we just want to invite everybody to attend. There is let's see, there's an open house, and I thought it was on here. I think it's in October. But you can, if you're interested in knowing rates or have interest in possibly renting the space, you can just call CAR, CAAR.com, or go online and ask for Beth Hyder, HYDER, and she'll set you up, bring you out for a tour, take a look at the space.
I think it's brilliant, and why it's brilliant is the 2019 agent doesn't necessarily need to go to a desk or an office. They need this and a Wi-Fi signal, but when they do need to meet with a client or they need to do a presentation, they need somewhere to do it, and they can rent it probably by the day, by the hour, by the short term, and it's done in an affordable way where the agent benefits and the association benefits. You're creating a revenue stream, and you're creating value proposition for why you should be a part of this organization. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Well, we have what, 1,200 members now? Have we reached the 1,200? It's a lot. I've seen it as low as 700 in my career.
Was that 2008, 2009?
No, I think it was more like in the late 90s.
Okay.
And then it ran up to over 1,000 in 2008. And then, yes, we saw a decline back down to maybe 800, something like that. But, we have probably 12 events a year that we have to pay to go off site to have just for our membership, which we won't have to do anymore. So I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking forward to it.
It just sent shivers down my spine. I was so excited to see
Tell me about it. Give us the visuals. Tell us about it.
And it's beautiful. So there's meeting rooms. We have smaller meeting rooms. We have a brand new board room, basically a large conference room. We have a smaller conference room, which we had before. Then we have this huge, with a vaulted ceiling, beautiful meeting space conference center, which I guess depending on the way tables are set up could hold, I don't know what the total capacity is, but certainly at least 200 people. There's a nice little courtyard outdoors with plantings and glass that opens out to the space. It's really just beautiful, and we never dreamed it would look as great as it did. We've been very, very busy working on that project for the last several years.
I remember doing a presentation early or middle of last year for Tim, Carson, and Jeff Gaffney and a bunch of the new agents of how to leverage social to drive brand awareness and to get clients. And
they have their meetings at Hillsdale, right?
We did it at Hillsdale. We did it at Hillsdale, and I'm so excited to see how it's going to evolve. I'd be remiss not to ask you this question. You said you've been in Charlottesville since '82.
That's correct.
Is Charlottesville, do you think, a better place now than when you first arrived? How's it changed? It's changed dramatically since '82.
Yes. Well, have seen so much change. It's definitely improved.
You say definitely improved?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's just not the same community as it was then. Obviously, from a realtor standpoint, Greg and I know all the housing development that's taken place over the years, and that certainly has enhanced, especially when I first started in the business in 1985. I sold homes basically in Charlottesville and Albemarle County. We didn't really go out to Zions Crossroads and Greene County and
two booming markets.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Nelson County and what have you. So and I was just thinking about this year. In the last couple of years, I've sold more homes in the surrounding counties than I ever did in those early years of business. So I'm on my second sale out in Greene County. One was a mini farm. Now we're looking at new construction, and with another client, certainly sold Zions Crossroads, Crozet in Old Trail, the city, but Fluvanna, Lake Monticello. So we're just so sort of in all of the surrounding counties now with our businesses that it's changed, but it's changed for the better. And I feel like in the 80s and the early 90s, we had what we would refer to as slow to no growth in some ways. Things changed a lot. There were years, the first 10 years I was in the business, there wasn't much of any new construction in the city of Charlottesville. It just didn't happen. You had the older neighborhoods of Greenbrier, which is where I lived initially, Johnson Village. You'd go to the city, and Belmont was there, of course, and you had the city, the infrastructure of the city itself, the older homes. But you didn't have all of the newer neighborhoods in the city. And so that's been really wonderful to see that blend. And then in the county, really very much the same, but sort of sprawling out in different directions.
Quentin Beckham, welcome to the program. Ray Cadell, thank you for sharing this feed. Christopher Eagle, Real Estate 3, thank you for watching. Give it a like and a share on any of the streams. Do you feel good about and I know you're in the business, and I know positive is good. Do we feel good about Q4 early next year? What's on the horizon? Do we feel good about the market?
I do. So, I try to keep my feelings out of it because as realtors, our businesses are also unique. Arleen could be crazy busy when I'm doing nothing and vice versa, and the market is the same. So I do a lot of, I learned this while I was president of CAR. We'd have to do all the reporting and read and go on the news and understand the high-level market data stuff. And representing all the builders and developers and bankers that I have, I tend to do a lot of analysis. And I run some reports I share on a monthly basis with the building community and the developer community. We track the leading edge of contracts for new construction, right? Because we look at the sold data all the time, but that's almost ancient history by the time you're looking at it. That's what happened. And so we try to follow what's happening. And over the last, we had this little...
So your most important metric is under contract?
When contracts are happening, particularly on the new construction side, right? How much traffic are in the builder models and how many contracts are they writing? Most of them are ahead of their sales plans. And then what I do is I compare it, like, for example, July over July over July for like 5 or 6 years back, my data goes. And in the last couple of months, we have seen the highest level of increase year over year. We've had a couple of the best unseasonably, not normal for the season, a number of sales. And contracts year over year are picking up pace. When we came out of the first quarter, we saw this number where sales were, 9 or 12% off, and well, that gap continues to close as we go through the year, and we're going to end up ahead. And right now, with interest rates the way they are, the only thing holding us back is the inventory on the resale side. And that's why the builders are selling so much property. They've been scrambling for the last few years to move into position to try to catch where the demand is. That's what they're always doing. The prime example is why we talk about Crozets. Stanley Martin controls a site that will be 200 townhomes and 100 villas that they will probably release this year. A lot sooner than anybody they thought. It's back behind the Dairy Queen, or if you're coming off Jarman's Gap, behind that new apartment complex that runs along the train tracks. And there, some of these builders have moved to Waynesboro to find the price points that are selling. So, there's a lot going on, and everything from a data standpoint and a market analysis standpoint shows that we are on very solid ground, and it's not a feeling, it's a reality.
Neil Williamson, welcome to the program. Dina Reed, Brian Denby giving you some props. Bill Martin, Nancy Page giving you some props right now. New construction cannibalizing perhaps some of the older inventory. Maybe that's not the right word. Maybe it's making some of that older inventory really have to step up its game.
Well, it does. And so we do need more inventory, and Greg is right. One of the reasons new construction is doing as well as it is because of the lack of resale inventory.
And people like shiny and new.
And people do like shiny and new. And, of course, we do have those frank discussions with sellers of resale homes when we have the opportunity to get into them. And the whole Pearl certification program, which I know you had a program on earlier, is one way to help sellers to recognize that their home might have added value. But the resale market, we do need more inventory, and it's a challenge. I know that days on market has increased some. I think going into the fall, that may continue a little bit more. Maybe a little bit more of a balance in the marketplace in some ways, but I know I have buyers right now that would be pouncing on the right house if it were actually on the market.
That's right. So do I.
And they're not necessarily looking for a new home. They don't want to wait to build a home.
So what are they doing? They're staying in their existing home longer?
They're staying in their existing home longer. They're renting their home longer. They're on the internet 24/7.
Well,
Even though we have them set up for searches and helping them to guide them to the right properties, it's challenging and it's frustrating, especially for the first-time home buyers.
you know, around me, you're right, people, I turned 50 this year. But
You're aging well.
thank you.
I would not have guessed that. Seriously. Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't have told you.
I would not have guessed that.
Anyway, kids in school, and so maybe during the recession changed so much about the way people saw home ownership and their home purchasing decisions. We're getting further and further away from it, but I think it's still fresh in people's minds. So people made more deliberate long-term decisions with better financial planning around that purchase. The interest rates were lower, and then you get into that, everything's working for you, but, you know, I would like to move here, I would like to move there, and then when you evaluate your options, yeah, you may choose to stay put because moving's not always fun, and when if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so, at least for my age group, I feel like people are staying put a little more than they did before the recession. It was a little more vogue to move around and upgrade or get a
So
bigger
the average
house.
person was moving, what, every 7 years?
Way too much.
Yeah, and now you're saying that's getting longer?
I think it's getting longer for
10,
sure.
Maybe
Yeah.
10,
Now
I'm
10?
hearing. Maybe closer to 10.
Yeah.
And millennials, I work with a number of them, but they're basically sometimes not able to purchase a home
Right. Well,
because
especially in a market like Charlottesville.
in a market like Charlottesville, but they're choosing to buy smaller, simple, minimalist type spaces, smaller homes if they can buy a home. Just they all want to be homeowners eventually, but they're struggling, and so the move up buyers, like Greg said, people are maybe staying in those homes a little bit longer. Maybe that's what we're seeing, and that's part of this effect of days on market.
One of the things, did you have Mike Bittrick on here recently?
Yeah, we did.
Mike
First Heritage
Buchanan?
Mortgage.
What the thing
Yeah.
to ask the mortgage guys are what kind of deals they're seeing getting closed, right? Before the recession, we had the indicators. There were people borrowing right up to those ratios and,
Right.
and getting into products where
No money down,
It just wasn't
adjustable.
It just wasn't sound fiscal.
Right.
Decision making, and so I always looked at those guys as a barometer of, when I see all these homes in our community like Oak Hill where they sell 40 or 50 homes in a few months. I'm like, well, what do the numbers look like for these people buying these homes? And they'll tell you that people are making better decisions. They've got more money down. They're not borrowing 100% of what they qualify to borrow. And so I think we're on a lot more solid ground over the last 5 years than we were leading up to the prior recession. So that's good. Home ownership can be done very well, and it can help you build wealth, but you have to do it the right way with some sound principles.
Stanley Martin took Wintergreen Farm, carved it into 82 homes, 82 lots.
And it went fast.
$600K to $900K, and it went in like less than 2 years.
Yeah, I think Stanley Martin sold.
Stanley Martin, are they doing the most volume? I mean, from a big builder. They're almost getting into
year,
Ryan territory.
Ryan Homes will probably push past 200 contracts this year. They're past 150 now. Stanley Martin is in the 120, 130 range. So
Are they in the 2 slot?
Yes, they're in the 2 slot.
What's the top 5 look like?
So it goes Ryan, Stanley, Southern. It will probably hit
Frank.
100. I met my spreadsheet is built around the top 4 because I track the percentage of the market share they hold during the recession. Those guys got to be over 80% of the market share because the recession.
Those 3?
Those 4.
Those 4?
Craig Builders.
Okay.
And they do 52 homes a year.
And is Stanley, correct me if I'm wrong, Stanley is now owned by a Japanese conglomerate.
That's
Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
But they've grown massively. From the time they came to Charlottesville, they've grown tremendously and opened 3 or 4 other markets and went from, a few hundred homes a year to getting into the thousands.
They've had a lot of success south side of Charlottesville. Why don't we close on this? 60 minutes in, easy peasy, you crushed it. Here's the toughest question I'm asking you today. If you had anywhere from 400,000 to 500,000, one of your buyers, 400,000 to 500,000, where are they going to get their best ROI, bang for their buck? And in Central Virginia. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you want to go neighborhood specific, that would be even better. Mm-hmm. And instead of like Greene County, Zion's Crossroads.
Honestly, I think if they're Albemarle County, I would be in Crozet. I would definitely suggest they be in Crozet because we have so much to look forward to in the community there. And is to
You can get a single family for $400K?
in
Crozet?
In Crozet, sure.
Western Ridge, Grey Rock, Bargain Park,
Sure, it
Wayland's
doesn't
Grant.
have to be new construction. It is a little challenging to get that with new construction, but certainly I would certainly consider that area. Yeah.
Well,
So Ivy, you were talking about Ivy. Just to note that just in the last 6 years that I've lived in Crozet, I would say that clients and friends of mine that live in Ivy, that have lived in Ivy, they're coming towards Crozet. You know, they're choosing Crozet, I think you mentioned it earlier, to come for dinner instead of going into town. So we're seeing a lot more of that direction of people, maybe they're the Crozet wannabes, living in Ivy, perhaps, or they want to go back home to Ivy, but we're just so close, and they don't have to deal with maybe downtown traffic and that sort of thing.
Will we ever see Ivy develop?
I don't think
What it is.
Yeah, it's going to be that. You think that's what it's
a
going to be?
lot would have to change,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
On a county zoning level to pave the way for things like that, I would think pitchforks and torches would come out.
I think you're totally right. How about 400, 500K
400,
for you?
500, there's a lot of ways to answer that question. If it's from a long-term investment standpoint, if you can figure out in one of these communities where you can get an ADU in that price point, and you can take $700 or $800 a month and throw it at your principal every month,
that's huge.
You're gonna do just fine. Otherwise, if in some segments of the market you get into the 400s, if you're in the townhome market and that's a luxury townhome, I would look towards those places where you're not buying in a sea of everybody has the same thing as you, right? You want to get into one of these more diverse communities with broader price points, because at the end of the day, I tell my clients, when you go to sell this, the value is going to be set by how many people have what you got that are trying to sell it to and what their motivation level is compared to you. So if you can, for example, Belvedere is a prime example. If there's 150 homes there now, there's only 30 or 40 townhomes. That feels pretty good to me, as opposed to owning one townhome among a sea of 200. There's a little more stability in pricing and supply and demand and things like that.
It's good analysis. You guys have made this show easy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seriously, thank you. I love talking real estate. Thank you for everybody who watched the program. This is what we're going to do for the show. If you're just tuning in now, we'll archive the show on ilovecville.com. We will take the audio from the show and we will turn it into a podcast on iTunes. We will do both by COB today. And then Lauren, our social media coordinator, is going to take the show and she's going to syndicate it for 30 days on 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, a daily e-newsletter that goes out to 108,000 inboxes, and the third largest Instagram community in Charlottesville, I Love CVille. If you follow real estate in Charlottesville or Central Virginia, watch this show. If you're really interested in the Crozet market, watch this show. Greg and Arleen, insiders from a Crozet standpoint that offer tremendous perspective today. We close the show the same way every single time. We ask everybody to please embody the golden rule. We don't make it about religion. We just make it about treating other people in our community how you want to be treated yourself. It's a simple concept, but it's a concept that's often overlooked. It's the golden rule. We're going to be back here in 83 minutes with our charity show. And today we're going to spotlight a fantastic charity, Caring for Creatures, which is the first no-kill animal sanctuary in Central Virginia, led by Mary Burkholtz. She takes the most at-risk animals up and down the East Coast, gives them a second, third, or fourth shot at life in Fluvanna County at a 110-acre sanctuary called Caring for Creatures. Thank you for joining us today. Good work.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It was
great.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. One more thing we got to do, Arleen, is we got to take what we call the hero photo.
Okay.
And this is what it's going to be packaged with.